welcome to today's first lecture. Some of you might have seen Tony, aka Addison Groove, doing his thing last night. If you didn't, well, if you did, you're going to have some idea about kind of who he is and what he does. And if you didn't, certainly by the end of this session, you should do.
I hope so.
So welcome, Addison Groove.
Hi. Thank you.
Now, over the next kind of hour and a half or so, we're going to be talking about loads of stuff to do with you as an artist. We're going to be talking about your relationship with juke music. We're going to be talking about the early days of dubstep, and we're going to be talking about the music you're making now. But first of all, we had a conversation yesterday in the, like happens at the academy. We had a conversation in the kitchen eating some food, and I thought it might be a really nice place to start. And that's you, age 7, with your ZX Spectrum 2. This is important, isn't it?
Because I was saying to someone yesterday how when I was about 5, I had a Spectrum, and then there was like a war between Spectrum and Commodore. But I had a Spectrum, and I was, I'm in the Spectrum camp, and I kind of read the manual, and it taught you how to make music using beeps, using the what's the operating system on the Spectrum? Oh, what was the name of it? What was it? No, it wasn't C. It was. Anyway, whatever. It was with the operating system. When you turn the Spectrum on, the operating system came up. You can select a load of tape, or you could go within the operating system and program it to make beeps. And I was learning from this book at the age of about 7 or 8 to program beeps that made a noise. And it took about 2 hours just to play about 5 seconds. But I was fascinated by these beeps. So I kind of knew that I wanted to make beepy music.
From the beginning, you wanted to make beepy music?
I think so, yeah. I was fascinated by it anyway.
I think there's certainly something, when you speak to people who make music, quite often they tell you similar stories, that right from the very beginning, as far back as I can remember, I wanted to make beepy music. So there's definitely something, I think, in an artist quite often that shows itself pretty early in terms of wanting to interact with technology, and also, most importantly, wanting to make it do what you want it to do.
It was kind of weird because I didn't realize until like recently that was something I was doing, like making this music, and now that I think about it, I was like, oh yeah, I was just programming the computer just like I am now, just in a different way. So it is kind of you're into the technology, but then you're also into making a noise. So yeah, it's great.
And talking of making a noise, it's really good, I think, at the beginning of these sessions to have our guests play something so that you get a real sense straight away about something that they do, just like you guys did the other day when you sat there and played your 1 minute 59 of your music. I think we could possibly live with more than 1 minute 59, but do you want to give us a little taster of something of yours?
This track's only 3 minutes. And no one would have heard it before, I don't think, so I might as well play it for the first time today. Let me talk about that little buzzing noise there. When you use Logic in Ableton in rewire mode, when you bounce a track, for some reason it has this crazy little buzzing noise just before you record. So I haven't gone back in and edited it yet. Thank you.
So are you able to tell us what that is?
Yeah, I made it ages ago. When I was getting into more bongo-driven music, I guess, and this particular track kind of reminds me of jungle in a way, just because of the vocal. Because I remember when I was younger, I would go to some kind of drum and bass raves, but then I was really into jungle from a young age, and he would have these voices and like pads and stuff, and yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. But then I like the bongo element of it as well. It's kind of a off-key beat. It's really hard for me to DJ this track. I don't play it in clubs, but it's good for a B-side or something like that.
Does it have a name?
Not really. It's called Rude Boy, but which is kind of obvious. But yeah, that's probably what it's going to be.
And is it an Addison Groove track?
Completely, yeah.
So you talked about kind of getting into more bongo-driven music. Can you expand on that a tiny bit, and kind of what do you mean by that?
I think what got me really into percussive music as such was juke. When I started listening to the juke stuff, I was amazed on how the little use they used of the sounds, and how super percussive it could be with just little elements. Like this track I just played, you got a kick drum and a bongo, and it's just working together kind of thing, even though they're kind of offbeat. So I guess well, from listening to juke, I was like learning about percussion, so it kind of got me into African music. And then I was listening to all this stuff from Africa, then my current stuff is definitely going that way, I would say.
No, I want to ask you in a minute about this kind of new, or not new, but this kind of interest that you've got at the moment in maybe Angola music, or kind of music from the 60s and 70s of certain parts of Africa. But I think before we go there, we just need to stick for a little minute with juke and your relationship with it, because you were one of the, I know lots of people were listening to it, but you were one of the first people to bring it to kind of a broader audience through Footcrab. It'd be nice to know a little bit about that, but what's your current state of relationship with juke artists themselves?
I'm good friends with Spin and Rashad, because they've come to tour the UK and Europe and stuff twice now, and I was able to book Rashad when he came to London maybe 6-7 months ago, and that's the first time I met him. I had a few emails with him before, and yeah, they're really nice guys, and they have a respect for me, which is really nice. When Rashad played in London, he played a remix of Footcrab that he did. I didn't even give him the parts for this. He took the track and just done something with it, and I was amazed that they've just given me this appreciation. They were like, we did that for you. We're aware that part of the reason we're out here is because you were pushing our stuff, and it's true. I was pushing the juke stuff when I was getting booked to play dubstep. I was playing like real deep stuff. When I heard juke, I was trying to get into my sets. I'll play 10 minutes at the start of my set of juke, and then go into dubstep because I thought no one's going to get it. And then gradually, I would put 20 minutes in and see how much I can get away with. And I made the Footcrab track, and I think anyone who would have seen me DJ prior to that would have had a little idea of that is what I wanted to play.
See, it's interesting, isn't it, that process of maybe sometimes getting your crowd to understand what you want to do. And there was definitely a period in dubstep where people were playing jungle records at the end of sets, and I guess you were doing something different. You were playing the different stuff that was future rather than past at the beginning, before moving into stuff people knew better.
Yeah, I just believed in the music. I thought it was really good. Simple. I do like simple music usually. And no one that I knew of was really playing it in this side of the country. Maybe there must have been people playing it, people buying it, but I had the ability to use my Headhunter name to play to a lot of people. I was playing to maybe one weekend I'll be playing to 200 people, and next weekend I'll be playing to 500, 600, 700 people. If 10% of the crowd enjoy the music, then I've done something what I've believed in, for good.
See, traditionally in Chicago, you know, dating back to the 80s, a lot of artists were very, very nervous about European people coming in and taking their music, particularly English people, because I think a lot of the acid house artists, and you'll be hearing a lot more about this afternoon, had problems with their music being stolen, basically. Do you think kind of coming in as an artist, people were dealing with you differently, or did you kind of encounter any kind of reticence from people to deal with you because there's this kind of historic knowledge of what happens when you let the music kind of get taken away from your city?
No, I never felt any bad vibes. There's some things I read online about myself that people are like, oh, he's stealing music from Chicago, etc., etc. Well, you know, who hasn't used a 909 kick drum? So, what? All I tried to do was give it to expand it, you know, and I had the ability to do that. I knew that I could play, like I said, to these crowds and push new music on them. And even when I made my tracks as Headhunter, I didn't just make direct dubstep. I always wanted to do a little twist on it. So I was often put in the kind of same bracket as 2562. Even my people from Bristol, like Pebberless, Pinch, you know, I was put into that kind of bracket because we were trying. Some people are like, yeah, it's like techno dubstep. All right, well, maybe it is, but it's not like the same kind of style as what was coming out of London, I don't think.
The interesting question, I think, for everybody is, you know, you've just said, you know, who hasn't used a 909 kick? The thing is as a part of a creative process, how do you take something that's not yours? You know, you're not from Chicago, you're not from the projects, but you've made music, you've taken music and made it yours. You know, other people have made music all around the world and made it brilliantly, but it's not their music that they've made. How do you take something that's an established scene and make it your own?
Well, the first thing was to not copy Duke. Like, I didn't want to sit in my studio and go, right, 160 BPM, let's make a Duke track that can get played in Chicago. That was, I can't relate to that. I have no history with that. So what I wanted to do with Foot Crab, in fact, it was a kind of accident. It was a good experiment. My experiment was, let's make this kind of Duke style music at dubstep speed. One of the reasons why I made it was because I was playing this Duke stuff. I never had anything to go from dubstep to Duke. So I was like, I'm going to make this kind of dubstep tempo Duke. So I made the track for that. I think I played it out. The first time I made it, there was no reaction. I was like, oh, well, okay, that's another one that just doesn't get spoken of. And then I gave the track to Pinch and Pebberless, and those guys were like, this is the best tune you've ever made. And I'm like, really? Okay. And then they started playing it, and then it caught on, and, you know, it. All I was trying to do was just experiment with a slowed down, you know, taking Duke elements and using it in dubstep so I could play it in my sets. That was it.
Well, should we have a little listen and maybe you can tell us something about what you did with it?
What, off Foot Crab?
Yeah. Well, perhaps if you don't want to play that, then perhaps it might be nice to play something else, a Duke thing and something of yours that's Duke inspired, so you can show us what you did that's yours.
All right. Okay, I know one. So I'll play something by myself first. This track came out on Sompe 1 back in March, I think. It's called Sexual. So in that track, you can hear the bass. The bass is like boom, 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 boom. Well, I overshadowed that in the track, so I wanted to make a track that went boom, boom, boom. And then the halftime snare was kind of from Ghetto Tech, you know, because the juke stuff is essentially Ghetto Tech music. So you got you got a snare on the fifth and the 13th there on the 808. So, you know, it's doing a two-step thing. It's got a vocal sample that's taken from a scratch record, and a lot of the ghetto music was kind of sampled from kind of maybe old funk breaks, which later went onto scratch records. I've got a lot of scratch records, and it's just full of samples. It's full of the greatest samples, like stabs like that. And those kind of samples you don't find on sample CDs, which are like what everyone uses. So, you know, you just try and think, what have I got in my studio that I can use? So I use that for the vocal bit. And the pad, well, a lot of the juke stuff that I like to play was very melodic. So I always wanted to make something with a melody. This track's at 145, so it was a good tempo to go from something that was 135, 140 up to something that's 155. And there's some juke tracks around that are 155. And the pad is taken from I kind of played it. It's sidechained, and it's taken from. I went onto Amazon and I searched for saxophone music, and I just wanted to look for music that just had only saxophones and other instruments and no drums. So, you know, I'm looking for samples in weird places, not sample CDs. It was a saxophone track that happened to have a Raving, and just found this little dude, and I made the melody. And, you know, there's not that much to it. All the percussion pretty much is the 808. Like, this track was made, you know, about a week or two after I made Footwork, which was in 2010. So you listen to some of my stuff now, and I think it's better produced and is a bit different, less elements and stuff. But, you know, this was kind of me having all these ideas in my head about what I could do with this music. And, you know, Footwork came out. That track came out. On the flip of that track was a tune called Work It. And to follow that was a bunch of other tracks. So, yeah, I just had so many ideas in my head that I didn't think was out there. So I was like, let's do this. Let's see how far I can take it. And my the Addison Groove thing was like, you know, I'm playing more shows than I did when I was Headhunter, and I'm actually enjoying it more because I can play so much different music in my sets. Like last night when I DJ'd, I started at about 135. I went down to 110 BPM by playing some Moobaton, and then I went, within the space of half an hour, I was mixing up to 180. But I love doing that. I love the variation, keeping people maybe guessing what I'm going to do, and it keeps me interested as well. So if the crowd can follow me, I'm happy, you know.
And so you mentioned just a second ago the 808. I think we should just talk about this for a minute. So this is yours, isn't it?
Yep.
I read you saying somewhere that it was a choice between a kind of a new car, because your car was sounding like a tank.
It was.
Or an 808, and you clearly chose tank for a while.
My car's all right now. I managed to get a nice one, but it's funny about this because my agent was like, I think we can start doing some live shows. There's people asking if you can play live, and I'm like, that's okay. I've never done that before. I've never fully played, you know, on stage with one of these and stuff. So I agreed on 3 gigs before I even bought this.
That's easy. That's the commitment, isn't it? Because sometimes you have to say you'll do something you're not quite ready to do in order to force yourself to get ready for it.
So I think I took.
By the way, how long did you give yourself to?
2 weeks.
That's a seat of your pants type maneuver.
It was hard to find as well because anyway, I took a gig in Finland, Fabric, and Berkheim. I mean, of all those places are kind of the places you should go as an experienced musician, really. So I was like, right, I got to locate a drum machine, and I needed one that had MIDI on. And if you notice, this one's been modified. You probably can't see it outside, but it's got 3 MIDI ports on, and that was essential because I wanted it to work with Ableton to keep in time, you know, so I can put loops on top of it. Found one, went to look at it in London. It turned out to not work, which was, I drove all the way to London to pick this one up. Got to this guy's house and it didn't switch on. So I was like, okay. Just about to leave London, 2 days later, And I emailed this guy on eBay, and he lived in Croydon, and I didn't hear back from him. And I was driving home. I was on the motorway in my tank, and he rang me, and he was like, "You can come and have a look at this drum machine." And I looked at it, and yeah, it's in amazing condition. It was quite expensive, but I know I needed this drum machine. And the gigs that followed, I did the one in Finland was okay. It was a bit kind of like, obviously he's learning how to do this. Then I went to Fabric, and I did a good job. I think I really enjoyed myself, and it was great. Yeah, main room Fabric for the first time doing that. It was pretty cool. And I guess you were all on that lecture yesterday where the guy from Function One was talking, and one of the great things about this is this kind of plugs into a mixer and it goes straight into the PA. It doesn't go for a DJ mixer. So when you play the bass drum from this, it does kick ass.
So do you want to show us what you've been doing with it live then?
Yeah, it's not, I mean, the setup right now is not the best, but I can explain. Oh, sorry. Okay. I can explain how it works. The drum machine has, it has like 8 or 9, 10 outputs, and it has individual outputs on the back. Each output goes into a different channel on the mixer. So that gives me volume control over each one, even though there's volume control on here. And then I can EQ it and stuff. When I play live, I also use a effects box. This isn't my effects box, but it's one I stolen from a room. So I don't quite know how it works, but it's got presets on, and it should sound okay. And I set that up on the auxiliary channels. So I don't have to play the drum machine from the start-stop button. I've actually got this Dofer box that converts a MIDI signal into a DIN sync signal. So this MIDI on the side has now, I don't need this anymore. So I could have just bought one with DIN sync on. So it converts the signal. So I can set like Ableton to 125 BPM. Press play. Hopefully I see the lights to go in. Yeah, I see lights. Then I can choose a sound, so a snare drum. I know snare drum's on number 2, so I should hear a snare. And then auxiliaries. Okay, there's a delay. Let me see. I haven't gone through this effects unit yet. So that's the snare, and then I can bring a bass drum in. And we got a hat. Don't know what channel that's on. Yeah, that's why you do a sound check, because sometimes things aren't working. Anyway.
But hey, as you've already explained to us, you are someone who likes to do something on the fly and appreciates that a mistake can sometimes be a happy part of the creative process.
That's right. All right. Okay, I see. All right, that's the tom, low tom of the 808. Now, the 808, the problem with the 808 is the bass drum doesn't have any pitch, so you're kind of at a loose end there. So what I've done is, let me stop this. When I play live, I like to I've sampled the 808 and I put it into Ableton. It sounds much better, and I can have pitch on it. So when I play live, I do some sampled 808 parts with my MIDI controller, and then I'll just play the drum machine because I got more variation on the bass drum. But anyway, I'll play this bass drum for now. So hopefully there's an effect on the tom, whatever. Anyway. kind of endless. So yeah, I have the drum machine doing all that stuff, and I also have samples in Ableton, which I didn't play just then, but I'll give you an example of a sample. Hope it's not too loud. I get carried away. I just this is what I do at home sometimes. I'm like, what can I do today? Oh, I'm just going to plug my 808 into my synthesizer, because this has got gate CV on. So if you've got a synthesizer that doesn't have MIDI, you can get the 808 to trigger it via the accent or the cowbell, and you don't even have to have the cowbell. I don't think you need it turned up on volume for it to work, or maybe you do. I can't remember because it all gets into the desk. But you can essentially sequence a non-MIDI instrument with this, and it's pretty good fun. You just get a bit lost. But if if you've got something like this effects box like this set up properly, this one's not set up entirely great, but you can just get kind of carried away. The unfortunate thing about doing everything in analog is, like, at the time you're really into it, but you play it against something that's like nicely mastered and engineered within a computer, and it doesn't sound as strong as that. So it's, unless you've got the best converters and stuff, and recording it all in, I find it quite difficult to do everything in analog, because I work really fast. I probably make about 2 tracks in a day, take about 2 to 3 hours per track. So I don't like to spend too long. If I'm spending like longer than 4 hours on a track, I kind of scrap it because I've lost the vibe of the track. So I like to get things done pretty quickly.
So you've cracked that idea of accepting the fact that stuff can never really be finished, and you know when something's kind of done, and that's enough.
Yeah, I feel like I make 2 types of tunes. One type of track I make is when I'm sat down and I know I want to make a track I want to play on Friday. I want to go to the club, I want to play this track, and I can make something that I want to have a rewind, or I can get something that can kind of just flows, or I've had enough of a club and it's like a Monday or a Tuesday, so I'm just gonna, like that first track I played, that was just an experiment. It's just like, cool, this is nice. It's just, you don't want to make club music, you just want to make something kind of weird but groovy.
Now, a lot of you guys will understand the kind of similarities and differences between DJing and playing live. But for you, what's been the most sort of interesting thing about opening yourself up to performing, basically, rather than DJing?
Well, the first thing is the whole set is my own stuff. Sometimes when I play live, I do chuck in the odd another track. Just depends on the crowd. If I turn up to a club and the crowd are kind of young, and most of the people don't know any of the DJs on the lineup, they're just there to have a party, I'll chuck in a few tracks that are not my own, just to get a party going.
Like what? What are your party starting tracks then?
I got the track I played last night is a track by Dexter, and it's called Space Booty. It came out maybe 6 or 7 months ago. I love this track. It fits really well with everything else. It's kind of a two-steppy track, and yeah. What else do anything by Bodica? Just always seems to work with. I try to find stuff that fits with my stuff quite well. So Bodica stuff does, Dexter stuff does. Not really any of the Juke stuff, because I don't have any music at 160 really, so I try not to play that stuff. However, when in the last 6 months, I have been playing the Rashad remix of Foot Grab, because it is great. So yeah.
And I know that some artists really like to collaborate, and I know that you tend to be more just kind of like making your tracks. But what about collaborations in the sense of having kind of compatible people to work with? I guess I'm thinking about the relationships you've got with people like Loafer or Martine, in terms of kind of working with them to make music for their labels.
Everything that was signed to any label was never made for the label. It was just, I'm good friends with Martin. I would sort him out with tracks, and we were just talking one day, and he was like, I'd love to do a release. But I'm like, well, just, some of these tracks that you got, they're not going to come out. So if you want to put them out, by all means. And so I never specifically make a track for a label. It's just there's an interest, and it's like, okay, let's do that. But when Loafer put the Foot Grab tune on Swamp, it was quite a good fit. It was like, obviously, he wanted his label to kind of go in this direction, and it kind of set things off for his label, which is great, and it was definitely a good home for it. So nowadays I'm not really kind of pitching my music to any label. I just like to make my own music, and if there's an interest from someone who appreciates my music and can help it do good things, then I'm all for it.
I think I'd like to ask you a bit now about the Headhunter stuff, because that was kind of, you were there right in the kind of early days of dubstep.
Yeah.
When things when I guess I'm talking the kind of period where things started to become slightly bigger, 05, 06 kind of era.
Yeah, I remember, again, dubstep was a kind of accident, because I live in Bristol, and around 2005, a friend of mine called Pob, he came to me. He was like, "Oh, we've been offered a radio show." And I'm like, "I haven't DJed for years. I haven't DJed since I've been about 2019. That's like 4 years or something." And okay, cool. Let's do it. And let me play something cool. So I was like, "All right, what can I play? What do I kind of enjoy that I can play, that's fresh, and it's, UK based music?" And it was grime, and I started playing grime. But a lot of the stuff I was playing, I was thinking, I like it, but I think I could make something similar that would fit more me. So I started making some tracks. It turned out I was making dubstep. I wasn't making grime at all. So, and the person told me that was a pinch, because I got him to come on my radio show, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. He's playing this crazy music I've never heard before. And so from that, I started to make dubstep, and then learn about Scream, Loafer, Mala, etc. Then I think in the space of maybe 6 months from me going, right, I'm going to make this dubstep stuff, I was signed to Temper.
And Temper at that point was kind of the preeminent label. It was the place to be on. Obviously affiliated with Rinse and
was
Forward. That
amazing.
was the only place to be, really, if you wanted to have a dubstep release.
At the time of doing that, I was living with Tech Itch and Jake's. And I lived with those guys for 2 years, and I was making the dubstep stuff, and I made this one track, Seventh Curse, and I gave it to N-Type, and that track came out on a label that me and Tech Itch set up, and N-Type went to London to Forward, played it. Sarah from Rinse and Temper, she was like, what is this track? Got my phone number, rang me. I think she rang me when I was playing paintball. It's kind of weird.
So you're playing paintball?
Something like that. It was. I remember it being something like that, and I was like, "You want me to do what?" And I just stopped playing paintball. I was like, "This is wicked." I got to arrange a bus to London because I was skint at the time.
Well, this is the thing, because at that point, all the artists that were making dubstep were pretty much fresh to the whole thing. I mean, there were some people who kind of carried on from the kind of like the stuff that influenced dubstep, your Z Bias, you know, people like that.
And Martin, like.
Yeah. But there were people, those people were in a minority. The vast majority of artists making those early dubstep records, this was the first time they'd kind of done anything.
Yeah,
really.
it came. Everyone making dubstep was as if that was the music they were making for the first time. Obviously, some people are older than others. Like someone like Scream, you know, he's what 16 and he's making like massive tracks. You're like, what is this? This kid's crazy. So, so everyone was kind of new to it, and that kind of fed into like going to play shows, because you kind of go, well, I'll come and play a show for you, but can I stay on your sofa for a few days because I've never been to Berlin before, or something like that. So then you kind of start touring around and seeing all these places, kind of not making that much money, but you're enjoying it. You know, you're doing it because you love it.
Because you spent a year, didn't you, kind of like living without a fixed address, you know, not kind of street homeless, but you decided, didn't you, that you would spend a year kind of not living anywhere in particular and instead kind of touring the world, staying on promoters' sofas and sofa surfing.
I was just fed up with living in Bristol for like, I wasn't happy in the houses I was living in. I was like, oh, fuck this. I'm just going to go and live around the world, because I could look at my schedule, and I had a couple of gigs in Europe, and then I had Australia coming up, and I had America coming up. I'm thinking I could probably stretch this out for a year and just tour around. And I kind of made an album on the road, you know. So I would be in Paris and I'd start a track, and next day I'm somewhere else, and an album came out of it called Nomad, which came out in 2008. Yeah. And I remember when that album kind of came out, that was when I actually started to get into juke music. No, sorry. Yeah, was it 2000? Right, tail end of 2008, maybe 2009, I started hearing glimpses of this juke stuff, but kind of gay tech version of it. But yeah, it was an interesting time for everyone involved in dubstep, and they kind of come from nothing. You know, they didn't jump on any bandwagon, because there was no bandwagon to jump on. It was just kind of pure, fresh vibes about it. That's why I like the juke stuff so much, because it reminded me of when I was into dubstep. When I first started to listen to dubstep, it was that kind of thing where I heard dubstep and I was like, do I like it? I like it, but it's kind of weird because you can't relate to it. You got nothing to kind of base it against, you know. Whereas other music's been around for such a long time, you kind of know. So,
I mean, for me, that's always a signifier of something interesting, where you hear something and you go, I don't understand it.
Yeah,
it's alien. I don't even necessarily like it, but I want to know more.
Yeah,
and that kind of like, there's something about it which demands that you kind of.
It's
get
when
into
you see the potential as well. You think, this is crazy, and if people are kind of getting down to this, then there's so much room for expansion on this genre of music. So the first dubstep event I went to was Subloaded in Bristol, and I was blown away. And the tune that blew me away was Koki Officer. When I heard that track, I was like, oh my God, that's it. I've got to make this music, you know.
Can we hear some Headhunter stuff?
Yeah.
Because obviously you've got a kind of, a back catalogue of older Headhunter stuff that you put out on Temper, but you're also still making Headhunter music now as well, aren't you? We have some maybe old Headhunter and some new Headhunter.
I could play an old track. Yeah. Yeah, this is from Nomad album, Prototype. Yeah, get the idea. Thanks. That track was, it took a long time to get going, but the reason when I used to make dubstep, the only DJ I was really, really into was Youngster. So essentially, I was making music for Youngster.
Do you want to explain for people who maybe don't know who he is, who this is?
Yeah, he was around from the start of dubstep pretty much, and he defined himself by playing only 4 or 5 producers. When I learnt about Youngster, I knew that he played tunes by Loafer, Scream, Benga, Mala, D1. Maybe Koku. But he had his own producers, and that was it. He wasn't acceptable to anything else. It didn't fit into his set. So when I signed to Tampa, I broke that mold, and I got a track in there, and I remember people were like, you've got Youngster playing your tracks. I'm like, cool, that's what I want. Because my idea when I started making dubstep, when I first heard it, I was like, I want to kind of make a style of dubstep that's kind of like Ed Rush and optical style, and that kind of wasn't around then. So that's why you got all these techie noises, and it's got a long intro because it's for a Youngster to mix. It's a really good track to mix this one. So you can mix the bass line in, and you can take your time with it. It's kind of like a techno mix rather than a drum and bass style mix.
I want to hear a new Headhunter track. But before you play the next one, you just talked about or you alluded to the exclusivity that existed in the early days of dubstep, and that's definitely something that's existed throughout lots and lots of other musical scenes. The idea that you have to kind of go somewhere to hear the music, and you have to go and see a particular DJ to hear a certain artist's music. This is an idea that you still kind of believe in, and you still kind of
because so much is gone now about the you can go online and download this, that, and the other, even before it's out at most people's albums. But when you got quite a small scene, if you got a track that a lot of people like to hear, you got to kind of treat it like gold. I've currently got a track that people are pestering me to release so much. Every time I play, most of the time I play, people got their phones, they want me to play this track. I can look at my Twitter, when's this track coming out, etc. It's a remix of Martha and the Vandellas' Jimmy Mac. It wasn't a remix, it was just the acapella fitted the track, and it gets a massive reaction. I made that track 6 months ago. I gave that track to, I didn't want to give it to anyone. I knew I was sat on a good track, so Jack Master, I'm good friends with him. He was on my case. Let me know when I can have it. I'm like, So I gave it to him. A week later, Scream, I want that track. I'm like, okay, all right. Well, I've always had respect for Scream, and I gave it to Ben UFO as well because he's a good friend, and they're the only guys with it. The only way you can hear this track is if you go on YouTube and see people going off to it, and I like that. I like the fact that you can't hear it properly, but you got to come to the club to hear it because it's designed. I didn't made that track to be played in a club. I did not make that track to be listened to at home, really. And when people say, "Can you release it?" Well, I'm kind of like, it's completely unmixable. It's got an acapella at the intro. I made it just so I can play it at the end of my sets. I don't know what I don't know why people want it so much, but I don't know how their thinking is.
See, the problem is we want to hear it now, but if we play it now, then that's fully on YouTube.
Oh.
Forever. So maybe it's something that we play after the session.
Yeah, we'll play it after.
Unless you want to do like a little snippet.
No, you need the whole thing.
Yeah. All right. Afterwards.
You could edit it.
That's the point.
Nah, we'll just do it at the end. Because I always play at the end of my sets anyway.
Okay.
So
all right then, yeah.
That kind of feels like I'm doing a DJ set right now with my voice. Anyway, I got a new Headhunter tune that I made this December, and I made it for Youngster. And when I gave it to him, he was like, "Oh my, I can't believe you've made me a rhythm, and you're like this best track I've got now." I'm like, great, cool. And it's coming out on Black Box, maybe in about a month's time. So it's called Projector. It's not very long, actually. It's only about 4 minutes. Again, you can hear like a minimal intro because it's designed to be DJ'd, mixed. Thanks. So all the track does, it has this middle section that does that, and then it rolls out. I didn't want it to have a second drop or nothing like that. I do like making tracks as Headhunter because it gives me the ability to be a bit more of a geek than just playing the drum machine stuff. You know, most of my Addison Groove stuff is very sampled. It's just about putting the sounds in the right place. But with this kind of stuff, a lot of it is down to engineering as well. You know, you just heard that track and you heard Prototype, and I think you could have heard the difference in the sound quality. Prototype was kind of flat because, you know, back then I didn't have outboard compressors. I didn't have as much information in my head about how to process sound as much as I do now. And you know, now I realize how important every sound in Logic. I use Logic and Ableton and Rewire. Every sound in Logic goes through a compressor and then an EQ. Everything, just even little bits, and then I bust everything off and I put a little bit of compression on those things, and I do tiny bits of compression throughout all the stages, and then in tiny bits of compression to my outboard compressor back into the computer. And I find if you do all these little bits of compression, it adds up to be a lot more than just one bit of big compression. You know, tiny bits of things here and there, it kind of sums it up, and you get a good get stereo filled punchy sound, nice bass, everything like that. And obviously I use these production techniques in my Addison Groove stuff, but the Headhunter stuff is very synthy and just techie and stuff. And I love doing that. I love being a nerd, you know, in the studio. It's cool. Everyone should. I think every producer wants that, really. They love to just get into their equipment, but they find that when they do, it's just sounding too technical and you lose the vibe of the track kind of thing or something.
I think it's perfectly possible to kind of like be a kind of geek with a vibe. The two things are not mutually exclusive, are they?
No.
No, you mentioned at the beginning, when we were at the beginning of our conversation, something about being into Angola music and kind of, well, I know because we had this conversation before, searching out tapes of music from the 60s and the 70s. Can you tell us a bit more about that and maybe play us some, if you have any sounds we can hear to illustrate?
An Angolan tune that I really like. Basically, the internet is a sample library. It is amazing. Everything's on there now. So I'm using it in a way of just finding these, bloggers. There's so many bloggers out there uploading stuff that they're finding, and it's endless. You can go for ages. And there's quite a few dedicated to African music, and I've really taken a liking to the Angolan style, because the Angolan style is from the 60s anyway. What happened was the Portuguese, they invaded way before that. And so you got like a mixture of like African music and Portuguese music. It sounds really, really nice. So I'll play something. But yeah, the internet is full of all these kind of things. Like I didn't know there was Egyptian jazz music until I was like, oh, what's that? So you listen to it, and I don't even think I could take really ideas from it or something. But I think you have to open your ears to everything. Because I'm playing dance music on the weekends and I'm making it, I don't actually listen to that much dance music. People's albums come out and I'm like, I like this track because I played it, but I don't spend too much time listening to dance music. I try not to be too influenced by it all. So I, in my car, I just play some hip hop or some crazy African stuff.
Wadi kola
So there's like a genre of music that I never knew existed. My education of music was from hardcore. Back when I was 10, that was, Michael Jackson maybe, but
Hardcore and Michael Jackson, a very English combination.
yeah. My goal when I was like 10 was to nick rave tapes off my mate's brother. That was my goal, because I didn't have an older brother, so the only way you're going to get these tapes of Fantasia, or how it's going around then, it was Fantasia and Dreamscape. Those two were the ones he was trying to get. And actually, this comes round to why I'm called Addison Groove. Mm-hmm. The reason why I chose this name was because Addison was one of the most popular unisex names of 2009, I think, in the UK. So I didn't want any gender specified to my name. So cool, it's Addison. My favorite DJ when I was younger was Easy Groove. He couldn't mix very well, but his selection was amazing. He would go from playing some kind of piano hardcore into like real hard stuff, and I just thought he was the best DJ. I always wished that you had a DJ like Easy Groove Selector, but Ratty as the mixer, because Ratty was my favorite, mixer, chopping all the drums up. I thought his mixing ability was amazing, but Easy Groove Selection was outstanding, and so I named my name after him, essentially. I loved his name, Easy Groove. I thought it was a really good name, so I managed to get Groove in my name. Yes.
You see, the thing about that era of hardcore is people, generally would see it as something that led to something interesting, or kind of had a role to play, but that it in itself wasn't necessarily very, quote unquote, good.
Very bashed together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Juke is in a way, I suppose. Grime. It's the same. People were making music in their bedrooms, going out on the weekend playing it, and the amount of people they were playing this music to is unreal. Like, there would be raves with 100,000 people sometimes. Castle Morton, I think, was 150,000 people. It's an illegal rave near Bristol, not far from Bristol, and it made the front news of every newspaper that an illegal rave was happening, and the police could do nothing about it. They couldn't stop this rave because there were so many people, and every DJ, like Groove Rider, Easy Groove, or so many grooves. Who else back? Top Buzz. There were so many DJs back then. LTJ Bookham, and they all did this rave. But it wasn't just there. The Orbital in London has a lot to answer for as well. It's like a big road that goes around London, London Orbital, and Orbital, the electronic band, are named after that. But back in '92,
good job they didn't call themselves M25.
Wow, that wouldn't be good nowadays.
I think the thing that I want to ask you about that though is that music definitely wasn't seen as good at the time. It was seen as like I don't know. Obviously, the people that were going there were really loving it, but it was kind of seen as, like I'm saying, not good music. But I think latterly people have understood that this was really raw, powerful, energy-filled music.
The front page of this newspaper saying illegal acid-taking monsters and stuff. Like, everyone's on drugs. Can they not realise that if there's 150,000 people into something in one place in the world, that's going to catch on? So that you got the press and everything going, oh, this is bad, and 5 years later they got Judge Jules in The Sun on Bazaar, that section where they talk about music and something. And they're like, yeah, this is a cool club this week or something. You're like, sharp,
So, would you like to follow our kind of 1960s Angolan music with some hardcore?
Oh yeah. Oh, what do I have? I have so much. When I DJ, I take some records with me, like vinyl, real things.
Real things.
Yeah. What hardcore do I have? Let's see. What would be better, actually, is if I play. I'll play a snippet of a Dreamscape rave, because you'll get the sense of where the MC came from. It was kind of like back in '92. I'm not too entirely sure the history of the MC in the UK, but it kind of started in '92 or '91, I guess.
Certainly the MC is host. or the kind of MC as we experience it in a club. I mean, there's a kind of probably a different lineage if you're talking on a sound system side, but certainly the kind of MC who has a place at a rave or a dance.
Yeah.
I think, you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what yeah. It's very bad quality. I mean, this was recorded a long time ago. Computer's crashed. I think it has. It's not.
See the rave vibes, the hardcore vibes are
no,
too
it's
much.
not. It's not crashed. It's just iTunes have crashed. So let me just do this thing. iTunes not responding. Sorry.
While you're just doing that, do you have like a big collection of kind of hardcore tape packs then?
Yeah. Well,
so you managed your 10-year-old self. You managed to kind of squirrel away a few bits.
Because I've moved around since I've been around 16, maybe 17, something like that. They kind of got lost. Some of them I still got, but the great thing is, the internet has all of them online. So the ones that I remember from younger, I can locate online. And there's been a track in my head since I've been about 12, and I lost the tape. Last week I found the tape online, and which is really nice. So I was like, yeah, this is cool. But all right, let's see.
Oi, make some noise, people! Go out to Mike Sierra and Mark Howell. Big shout goes out to Paula. Go out to Claire.
I mean, they just give shout-outs to everyone pretty much.
Being a massive pirate station.
Yeah.
From the DJ Ramjack and the rest of the crew. Go out to the Raphael Sketchy. This is the Bamble Easy Groove.
And yeah, this is Easy Groove. My
On time. Time to buy your ticket, matey. Right. We're on a brand new mission. A techno mission. No dismissing. We can get out to play.
So it's just dark, messy stuff. You know, there's no definition to the music. It's take drugs kind of thing. You know, but when I was on drugs, and when I was 10 or 12, I was just like, this is the shit, man. This is what I love. I love this music. It's something about it.
See, it's weird because everyone goes on about being open-minded and how everyone should listen to different types of music. But when you tell people you like sort of psytrance, people often look a bit confused.
People do look confused. They're like, you like what? It's like, I like all music. You know, it's like if something has something good in it, even some, you know, if things in the charts, whatever, if it has an element of something that I like about it, I'll listen to it. What I liked about psytrance was the noises, the sound design that took place in these tracks, and how, you know, I really like Hallucinogen. He's a very obvious person to like in psytrance, but I really like him, and his whole crew. He's got a label called Twisted, and you listen to their stuff, and it just evolves, and it's just synthesizers kind of bouncing off each other, going crazy. And so psytrance is interesting because it's never gone mainstream in the UK, really, and yet it's got a massive following around the world. It's one of these kind of underground scenes that's always been there, but not many people in the UK anyway are kind of aware of it. I think that's quite an interesting scene, actually.
Yeah, I think, again, one of those signifies something. Sometimes a signifier of an interesting scene can be if everyone thinks it's a load of rubbish.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone being not necessarily the best judge.
Yeah, that's why in the early days of dubstep, you would play to a room of 15 to 20 people. There was not many people there, but all these people knew. They knew what potential it had, and what, even back then, the music was so good. It's like, we know something that no one else does. Now look at dubstep, it's huge. It's, you know, unfortunately, you find that there's not much room for the kind of deep style, you know.
Can you give us a sense of the difference between how things were on the dubstep scene when you started and how things are now?
I don't really play that many dubstep events anymore. I actually did one on Saturday, which was quite good. But it was me and Jake's, and I played live actually, but I had to chuck in a few of those tracks that I mentioned earlier because I knew that a lot of the crowd were kind of into the Jake stuff, and I'm great friends with Jake's. I used to live with him, but it was, what he played was what I know Jake's as for, but it was just a bit too aggressive for me. Some tracks I did like, but some of them were a bit too noisy, and it's that's kind of what happens. I think in the dubstep has gotten really big, and it's because it's gotten noisier. Unfortunately, I think that's the appeal to a lot of people.
I guess there's a heavy metal kind of aspect
That's
to
it.
it. Like when for people who, obviously some people are very sophisticated in their listening from very, very young, but sometimes when you're really young, all you want is like a big noise
That's
that
right.
makes you feel big and massive because, it's kind of simple.
Yeah,
and
when
obvious.
I was 17, I was going out listening to Ed Rush and Optical and all that. The heavier the track, the better, give it. But as you grow a bit older, I think your ear changes and.
Well, I've got to say, Ed Rush and Optical tracks generally stand the test of time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Can we hear something else from you? We'll put it out to questions from you lot fairly soon. So start thinking about kind of what you want to ask. But can we hear some more music from you?
Yep. Let's see. All right, I did recently a DJ Shadow remix. It's going to come out real soon. It's a rewind track.
Do you want to tell it before you play it? Do you want to tell us a little story about how the wrong version of it ended up on the internet?
Oh yeah. So I made one version at about 1.2.5 BPM, and I gave it to Island, who were the ones putting it out. They were like, "Oh, look, we like it, but we want something a bit more dubbed out, a bit more heavier." I'm like, okay, let me go back to the drawing board. So I made another version, and the other version was like heavier. I was like, this is probably going to get a rewind. So I emailed what I thought was this version to Scream, and he replied, "Oh, I love it. It's wicked." And then I later find out that the version I emailed to him wasn't the smashing version. It was the kind of slowed down version. Yet he still played it, which was kind of nice. So. I don't think this one's actually been played online or anything anywhere, but I know they gave a promo out of it or maybe a week ago or something. Yo.
Definitely feeling that dreamscape influence in there.
Yeah. Well, the reason why the drums aren't at the start, because it's that kind of track that doesn't need to be mixed, it needs to be dropped. And that was the plan. I sat down. It didn't. That track probably took me about 2 to 3, 4 hours to make. But what does take time is the mixdown. I can make a tune like that really fast, but the mixdown could take me a while because I really want.
What's a while in your world?
3 hours. but I would do the mixdown the day after. I would never do the mixdown the same day. I was making a track. My ears become tired and I'm listening to the wrong things. I think I get fatigued or whatever it is. So yeah, I would wake up next day and get coffee, and it's the first thing I do in the day because I know my ears are fresh, and it seems to work. I used to do this thing where I used to start a track in the nighttime, and then in the morning I'll mix it down, and I did that for a while. But nowadays schedules are a bit crazy, and I can't really do that so much anymore. But that was kind of a way of working for a while for me.
So mornings are for mixdowns.
Yeah.
Afternoons and evenings are for fresh tunes.
Yeah, generally that's how it works in my world.
What do you guys want to know? Do we have the microphone ready to hand out? Who's first?
Hello. Mute. Hello.
Yeah, if you just wait a sec, they're just switching
Mute,
on from the
hello.
inside.
This is me. Yes. Hello.
Hello.
This is for both of you, actually. Just something I thought of. Do you guys see any similarity between the way, like GABA, hardcore, and psytrance was in the 90s, and the way dubstep scene is now, like made for maximal impact and really popular amongst young teenagers and stuff like that? Don't take it the wrong way. Sorry.
No, it's. I've been DJing this kind of stuff since 2005, and then it's just grown and grown. I've noticed that the crowds stay the same age. The crowds are generally between 18 to 25, unless you go somewhere like Berlin and you kind of get an older crowd. So, I want to make music, and I don't look at it as a job, but I want to keep myself in a job. So if I want to go and DJ, I will have to make. I want to make this music that this young crowd can go off to. So like the track I just played, I know that's going to go off in a club, but I'll then go and make something that's not going to be played in a club. I balance it out by making different kind of styles. But I know what you mean. It is very directed at that club scene.
Well, I'm not at all talking about your music.
Oh, no.
Asking about your music.
No, but I'm giving you an example of how it would work for me, because that's what I've seen. I've seen the crowd stay the same age, so I've kept the music like something other people can play. I can play. Explain what you mean again.
Just like you played us an example of psytrance track or hardcore tracks from the 90s, and it sort of makes me think of this Skrillex sound. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like just as a 15 years removed though, or more, but still it's the maximal impact and high energy kind of, and sort of simplicity in a way too.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have given you that example had I not grown up on it, because when I was younger, when I was young, that's what I was into. So I listen to it now for nostalgia, but it is high energy and. Yeah, the same rules apply, to today's music, like Skrillex, to what it was then.
I would just add, I think that the main difference really is that the roots of those things are different, so I guess the fruits of those things are going to be different, and maybe there are areas which are really comparable, but I don't know if psytrance has a kind of like deep underground, like so dubstep, Skrillex is part of the dubstep world, like it or not. But there's also stuff which comes from that culture, which is very different, which is kind of like deeper or more underground or more kind of musically rounded maybe. Whereas I don't know if that is true with psytrance. It might well be true, but I don't know if it is. So to me, that would be the difference. There are some similarities, but the bigger picture would be different. Who's next?
Speaking again of the rave music from the 90s, it was kind of prohibited stuff, and it kind of added some spicy flavor to this music, because it was a forbidden fruit, you know. And
When you mean
now,
forbid, do you mean just kind of like not cool? Or do you mean like literally prohibited in some areas?
I mean, it was not kind of illegal, but it was not like nowadays when the dubstep is pushed, when you can hear a lot of tunes every day, like on every block. When sometimes I walk along the streets in my city and I see some street dancers, some really young guys, like 15 years, and they're trying to do some moves to dubstep. When I hear some commercials, I hear dubstep at the background. So, what do you think is more effective or more important, or what is more like kind of true? So the music should be, you know, prohibited, some illegal, or open for the whole world. What pushes it more effectively?
You mean like should stuff stay underground or should stuff be for everybody?
I think that what exists right now, there is underground elements of it within dubstep. Like that track of mine that I played, for example, I would say that was a more underground track. It's not played by the biggest DJs. I guess you're here. I remember with drum and bass, you play it in the clubs, and then it started to come on commercials. But I don't think it took away anything about the music that I didn't like about it. You know, it was like that exists there, and it exists in the club. But it's a different kind of thing. You got anything to say about this?
No, I'd agree. You know, stuff just has a life of its own, doesn't it? You can't expect a scene that had so much energy in it to just stay as it was. It was everything that's happened was bound to happen, and then that will go off and create other stuff. It's not like scenes don't exist separately from other things. Everything feeds everything else. So
and dubstep is so variable. You can have that high energy sound, or you can have a very slow pace track, which will fit on a film or a commercial. That's the great thing about dubstep. That's what, when I first heard it, it opened me up to dubstep. I was like, wow, the possibilities with this genre is amazing. When I was getting into dubstep, I was like, wait until the Brazilians get into this. You know, they'll now start making some crazy rhythms, but yet to hear it, I think. But you know, something like that. When it gets that happened with drum and bass. When
you
it
mean
did,
like what Pachife and Co did with drum and bass?
Yeah, they took it in a Brazilian style and it kind of reinvented drum and bass in a way.
Where's the samba step? It's a challenge out now to
it's just a great tempo to work at, so you can do various things with it.
But that's the thing, you know. But before we move on to the next question, my thought about dubstep was always it wasn't really a genre. It was more a community of people making music roughly at the same tempo and roughly with the same kind of feel, I suppose. It wasn't really a genre, and that's why I suppose it can support lots of different types within this kind of very, very broad umbrella.
It's the same as what, like the whole movement with what's going on now with, you know, Night Slug, Swamp 81, who you can't really define what it is, but if anything, it's dubstep in a way. You know?
And as Steve Reich said at the London Academy, any artist that talks about genres should wash their mouth out with soap and water. Leave that to the journalists.
That's good.
Who's got the next question?
Hello. There we go. Tony, I'm probably about a similar age to yourself.
Yeah.
And my first love was actually hardcore also, kind of early 90s, maybe a bit later, like 92, 93. And for me, I perceive it as being a bit of a dirty word, especially these days. It's seen as being this very sort of like, it's all a bit messy and stuff.
Yeah.
But my question really is actually for the benefit of those that don't know and people watching at home, or could you name check maybe some DJs and stuff that are worth checking out to hear the real stuff, the kind of good stuff, which, you know, maybe
I can give you a record label.
Sure.
Basement Records.
Okay.
Almost their whole catalogue is great. It's went from hardcore into like a kind of, it wasn't officially a genre, back to these genre things, but some people coined it jungle techno, because it's kind of what happened with Basement and a few labels. They started off as a hardcore label, then it evolved into a jungle label. And you listen to all their releases and you kind of see the progression.
Right.
I think that's a great label to give an understanding of how throughout the years of hardcore into jungle, how it happened.
Yeah.
And Moving Shadow as well.
Definitely.
Moving Shadow is one of the greatest dance labels ever, I think. And they started off as a hardcore label, and they went through into jungle, and it's a great transition. Now you hear it kind of unfold, and it happened very quickly. From like 92 up until 94, you had hardcore in 92, and in 94 it was pretty much going into jungle.
Right.
And in the space of that time, it just transformed quite quickly.
Cool. And just sorry, one more. Do you see a similarity between jungle music and footwork?
Oh yeah, I make sure track last night into a drum and bass tune
Okay.
at the club. So like,
Yeah.
you're a great example of the jungle style footwork, and because it's that
Do you want to tell us the track you're talking about?
the Adam F1 circles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did like some edits of jungle stuff into footwork, and
It's fantastic, I will say. I've been playing it most of my pretty much every set, because I like to finish my sets off quite fast, and that particular track mixes well with jungle. And yeah, I found that the footwork stuff is almost the same tempo as the jungle. And when you put a aim and break or a drum and bass jungle loop underneath a juke track, it's really works really well. Yeah, it's great. So they're almost the same things to me.
yeah, I think it's interesting that the love of jungle and then now the footwork thing. Maybe there's a connection.
Yeah, it feels like it's. I think what it's done as well for me is it's given me the ability to DJ jungle again, because I can bring it into my sets. I love it. It's really cool.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Just to add on that, I just saw Rashad and Spin in Berlin, and he put jungle in his set just for like 2 songs. I was like,
Oh, really?
what?
Excellent.
It's really
I
cool.
played with Rashad last week actually. Every time he plays, I love it. It's just full of energy, and it's the good energy, It's not-
Definitely.
yeah.
Is this when you and Spin and Rashad were in Poland?
That's last week. Yep, that's right. We played Unsound Festival.
I was just gonna ask if you preferred DJing or playing live, like which one you like.
I get
more.
asked that quite a lot, and I don't prefer any, because the way it works is I would DJ twice on a weekend, and the weekend after I'll do 2 live sets. So it's fairly balanced, and it's nicely balanced. That so say in a month I did 10 gigs, 3 or 4 of them will be live. So it keeps that kind of nice element of it being still quite rare. And I enjoy that. I think if I did it all the time, maybe not so, because I really enjoy DJing. I like playing other people's music in the club. I like mixing and stuff like that. The DJ sets have that kind of energy that's higher than a live set, I think. But I like them equally and in different ways.
Hi.
Hey.
The thing about juke, it's merging a lot of musics from different horizontals merging into it, and it kind of build bridges between a lot of things, like the first music you hear when you're a teenager and you have your anger into it, So like for some of us it was hardcore, for other of us it was like maybe heavy hip hop. For us, it was house or Chicago music, you know.
Yeah.
And that there's all these things you find in this. So basically, my question was, when was your first contact with juke? Like, for example, I started to listen to rap music really late, and the first time I hear it in a club was actually a UK DJ, Martello, and it was like a remix of. The Young Money, I like Ferg everywhere in the world,
Oh yeah,
and and then so there's a low pitched vocal at some point, and it start looping, and the tom came adding the tension, and I was like, the first time I heard fast music for a long time that was actually good in clubs. So what was it, a UK DJ, or did you hear it straight from Chicago?
No, early on, maybe 2005 or something, I heard the Percolate track, and I was like, I like that. I like that track.
Give us a little bit more context of what you're talking about, so
So
everyone gets it.
The Percolate track was the biggest booty bass track around. When did it come out? Do you know when it came?
90s.
Yeah, early 90s.
I think like 94.
But I didn't really learn about it until later and stuff, and I was like, I like that, but I didn't follow it because at the time I was really getting into this dubstep stuff. And then years later, I seen on YouTube these Footwork battles, 2008 maybe, and it reminded me of this Percolate stuff. I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's kind of ghetto tech style, but super rhythmic. So I just learned about juke the same way I learned Ableton, YouTube. I just, I was watching the videos, listening. I was like, this is the most insane thing I've heard since dubstep. It's the most fresh thing I've heard. So yeah, it's simply that, just being a curious YouTuber. That was it.
School of YouTube. Next question.
Sorry, and just what was the other UK DJ that first really were involved into this and helped to spread the movement? Because it's kind of breakthrough now. Like a lot of people know about it. And who can you name some other maybe people in the UK?
Well, there was a few people that was making stuff that was influenced by it. I would say now Ramadan Man. He had a release on Swamp 81 and a Girl Unit, Night Slugs. And these tracks came out around the same time as Foot Grab, so we were all kind of aware that juke is around, and those tracks came out, and it's like, right.
And I think also Mike Paradinas as well from Planet Moo, who put out the Bangs and Works compilations, because he was very on it as well, and it took a long time to actually. He talked about having to search down people on Facebook. He didn't know what their real names were, and I think he found Rashad because one of Rashad's old high school teachers had built a website for someone, and he kind of managed to locate these people.
Yeah,
through
well
a lot of tracking
well done
down.
to Mike. He basically found these guys in Chicago who are impossible to find. There's this music around. Don't know anything about the artists. Don't know how to get hold of them. Don't know. I think that's what appeals to it as well. That alienness of it, because everything's open on the internet, and like I was saying earlier about keeping tracks just for the club, it's that kind of thing where it gives you a bit of mystery, like how Burial was real. He became kind of iconic because his music is amazing, but at the same time, no one knew who he was. There was such a mystery around it. So yeah, like these two things going on. UK thing, yeah, maybe.
Okay, who's next?
Yeah, so I'm curious, you have these two alter egos, and do you ever how do you decide which one is which? Do you ever you're like, oh, now I'm gonna work on an Addison Groove track, or do you kind of work on a track and you're like, oh, this is you have a hard time figuring out which one it kind of is?
I know what you mean. There's definition between the two. One is more one is using the drum machine. I do limit myself, and I think less, from me limiting myself to using the drum machine is kind of made me more creative with it.
So you only use the drum machine for Addison Groove stuff?
Yeah, not entirely. I use samples, of course.
Right.
But
but I mean, you wouldn't use it for Headhunter?
I've used a couple of the sounds, but the difference is the Headhunter stuff is very half-step style dubstep. It has that sound to it. Addison Groove stuff is a bit more loose. It could be housey, techno-y kind of thing. So I never really know what I'm making when I'm making an Addison Groove track. But when I'm making a Headhunter track, I know what I want it to sound like. I know what the end result should be like, how I want it to shape and stuff.
Do you ever find yourself working on something and you're kind of in between?
Yeah.
I don't know. And then you have to take it one way or another purposefully, or
there's one track that's going to come out on a compilation on Tectonic real soon, and it is one of those kind of ones where it literally is half and half, but it's going to be an Addison Groove thing. But it's quite techy, but it's using the drum machine as well.
What do you think there'd be another name kind of on the horizon if you started making music that was radically different?
I haven't thought about that. I don't think so. I really enjoy doing this, and I enjoy the versatility of it. I could do various things at different tempos, so I don't feel like I have a need to find another one.
So it's more like you think this sound will develop. So Addison Groove will develop as an artist, as a sound, rather than kind of more like that. I suppose someone like. If you look at Mark Pritchard's records, he marked the different phases of his musical career, but with different names. Obviously, probably for lots of different reasons.
I haven't been around for that long, really. So maybe I'll change my attitude towards that in a couple of years.
Yeah,
but
2 down, see what happens next.
Yeah, but it's nice to, yeah, like I said, no restrictions on what I can do. And I like keeping things with Addison Groove because it's good to just kind of build one name. I think it's important to try not to spread yourself too thinly, because if you keep one thing and keep it going, you know, an example is someone like Mode Selector. They released their first album, their second album, their third album. They're on the front cover of all the magazines, and you know, they've just kept it consistent with their same idea.
Do we have any more questions?
Yeah. You talked about the mixdown being one of the most challenging parts of track making.
Yeah.
How much do you see that as being part of the artistry of it? I mean, would you ever delegate that to someone else, or you know, do you see that as being actually take pride in that?
I enjoy it, and I enjoy making things sound the way I'd like them to sound. But you could listen to 100 juke tracks that are produced really, really badly, and they sound amazing because they're full of this kind of soul and vibe about it. I think I would say to anyone, music composition is far greater than its the mixdown, but it does help to be able to sculpt sound and control it the way you want it to be. It's a good element to have. It's part of your production, but I would say the composition part of it is far greater. Yeah.
We have another question over here.
Yeah. We've been talking a good bit about juke and footwork, but we've yet to actually talk about the dance, which I think should be brought up because they both, they don't, like the dance doesn't exist without the music and vice versa.
That's right. Yeah.
But
it's the first instance when I seen it of something like this existing, except in current time, because obviously before it was breakdancing, which was kind of rap and hip hop and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah, you did mention it. Have you seen it live? Have you seen any dancing live yet?
No.
It's hard to come by.
I wish. I obviously spent some time with Rashad, and I was like, "Can you show me something?" But there was no time to do that.
Yeah,
I want it. I would love to. I think there was some people touring as part of a Planet Mu tour recently.
That's like, because the music's really good. It's really weird, and I think if they can, and they know this already. It's just like the perils of touring with more than one or two people. Like, you know, it costs money, it's expensive, etc. And also like one dancer, like the dancers feed off of each other. So like one or two dancers the entire night is too much, and it's a difficult dance.
Yeah.
I'm from Chicago. I've been to a few battles on the south side.
Oh wow. Cool.
It's amazing. You know, you can literally be there for 3 or 4 hours and hear nothing but footwork, but never once be like, oh, you know, like this is too much. Like, this is because the dancing is so exciting, and the DJs feed off the dancers, and like
reminds me of
cool.
Reminds me of tap dancing a lot of the time.
It's crazy. It's like the battles they need to take breaks. Like they need to take 5 to 10 minute breaks in between some of the after sessions because they go so hard.
And is the dancing evolving?
Yeah. I mean that's like it's really cool. The DJs, like the dancers, I mean, it's a very small niche. Like really, it's like even in Chicago itself, it's very small. You know, most DJs in Chicago aren't playing footwork or
when
juke
you say
or none
small,
of that.
do you mean like a couple of hundred people?
Yeah. I mean, like a few hundred people. You know, I mean, it's still predominantly very black, very South Side Chicago. Chicago's massive, and it's very segregated still.
Is there like dedicated clubs in Chicago putting juke parties? No. Or even footwork parties?
The proper like the footwork parties happen, but they don't even really happen in clubs because it's a very young scene. There's kids that are like 9, 8, 10-year-olds that are dancing. Like it's community based too. It's about like, because the South Side of Chicago is also really like hood and real rough, and it's about trying to make something positive, you know, like it's about like keeping the kids off the streets, like instead of selling drugs or in gangs, which is like really bad in Chicago.
It's a positive underground vibe.
Yeah, that's what it is. So like it's usually like $5 to get in, and it's at like a community center. Like it's not nightclubs. Like it's not nightclub music. They go to community. Yeah, they don't even sell alcohol or anything. Like it's at community centers or like parks. A lot of times during the summer, you see it on the street.
It must be amazing for Rashad and Spin to come out here and play their music in clubs. Because when you hear the music in the club, it just sounds really good.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. Like they play, like they set up like pretty like, you know, that's like whatever speakers, whatever they could get their hands on that has some bass, and they just play, and the dancers will like make suggestions to like they'll like tease, they'll be like, give me something harder or faster, and so like Rashad's forced to like either like while he's DJing to play something faster or harder, and then it's weird, like there's a whole system set up, like Rashad and Spin are kind of like at a certain level now, but you got kids like Earl and Manny that are 18 and 19 that are like kind of coming up, and they all just like hang out together and make beats on the MPC. And they'll make like 7 or 8 or 9 a day, like all day. Wow. They don't do anything but make beats. If they're not DJing, they just make beats all day. It's crazy.
I guess the people in the UK or around the world making dance music, they're making it for the club.
Yeah.
But these guys aren't necessarily doing that.
They're making it for the dancers.
Yeah.
Like if they stop making music, like the dancing will stop to evolve, and vice versa.
Wow.
Like it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
I can only second all of that. Yeah. So, are we finished with questions? If you have any other stuff, obviously you can come up and, talk to each other and ask questions afterwards. So if we consider ourselves finished, we should kind of do our thank yous and then have our little secret moment. So, Addison Groove, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Behave.